Hello, my name is Ricardo Baptista-Leite and I am a Member of Parliament here in Lisbon, Portugal, and the founding president of Unite, a global network of parliamentarians committed to ending infectious diseases as a global health threat and currently present in more than 70 countries around the world. It is a true honor to have accepted the invitation to be with you today at this important conference organized within the Lithuanian Parliament on the decriminalization of drug use. And because of that, I would like to thank my esteemed colleague, the Honorable Morgana Danielle, for that invitation and for putting this meeting together. I would like to greet all of the other speakers, in particular my dear friend Michelle Kazachkin, and thank you all for committing your time on this important issue, which of course affects the lives of millions of people around the world. I have been asked to speak about the Portuguese experience of decriminalization, which now hits an important mark of 20 years of effectiveness within our country. And the outcome has been positive. But to speak about where we are today, we need to look at what got us here. And looking back in the 1990s, Portugal was truly going through a heroin epidemic. Around 1% of our population had some form of problematic use of drugs, particularly heroin. And this was leading to crime, to social and economic upheavals, even families being disrupted. No matter what part of society, no matter how rich or how poor, everyone was being negatively affected by the problematic use of drugs. And at that time, the use of any kind of drug would lead people to go to jail. And so we were seeing our prisons clearly being overcrowded with simply people who were using drugs. And that was truly not leading to the end of trafficking, and it was not solving the issues of those, particularly those having health issues related to the problematic use of drugs. So when dealing with addiction or mental health issues, nothing was being done. Given the severity of the situation, the Portuguese Parliament in the year 2000 understood that something needed to be done, something dramatic. And the parliamentarians at that time took the audacious step of thinking of a new form of legislation that would not make drug usage legal, but it would stop being a crime. In other words, drug users would stop being perceived as criminals and to start to be perceived as people who actually could use and benefit the assistance of our National Health Service. That led to what we call the decriminalization of drug use and was enacted and put in practice in 2001. In Portugal, this was put in practice simultaneously with the creation of a universal system of harm reduction, which ensured that everyone would have access in any part of the country, with this perspective of, on one hand, preventing many of the negative consequences related to drug use through syringe exchange programs, low threshold methadone programs, and so forth. And on the other hand, making sure that we were giving easy access to mental health support, to other forms of health services that could be of assistance to those who needed it or who wanted it. And 20 years later, in 2021, what we have seen is that since then, the number of infectious diseases related to drug use, for example, HIV and AIDS, which was responsible for more than 50% of new infections in the late 90s, today represents less than 2% of new infections, new HIV infections in our country. It has basically disappeared as an important source of infection because of all of the harm reduction approaches and because of the decriminalization approach. On the other hand, drug-related crime has basically disappeared, and we do not have anyone in prison because they use drugs. Moreover, we're seeing higher success rates than most European countries when it comes to rehab centers and rehab approaches. And what we are seeing also is that, unlike what many of the critics at the time had said would happen, Portugal continues to consume all forms of drugs below the average of most European Union countries. So that goes to show that decriminalization worked, and no, we did not become a destination for drug use. Some people had said that that would happen. It did not happen, because the approach was not to promote the use of drugs, but the idea was to create a safe environment for those that were using it, and making sure that we were treating people with dignity, making sure that we were applying the principles of human rights, and making sure that the access to health services, to mental health services, to social services was a reality for all, particularly for those in most vulnerable situations that many times are those caught in the web of the problematic use of drugs. We believe that our example here in Portugal is one that can be replicated in many parts of the world. Of course, we have a lot to do to make sure that we are even more effective moving forward, but this is a first stepping stone that we consider to have been fundamental to put the situation under control here in Portugal, and to make sure that simultaneously we are capable of taking out the maximum advantage from a social and economic perspective, at the same time that we are protecting those in most vulnerable situations, not leaving anyone behind. I hope that our experience can help you as you consider what to do in your own countries, and in particular in Lithuania, as you are discussing the issues of decriminalization, understanding the potential advantages for the country and for the communities within. Thank you.